Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're asking a pretty provocative question. What if saying no to war just isn't enough anymore? We're going to dive into a radical evolution of conscientious objection, exploring how deep Quaker history is fusing with indigenous wisdom to forge a totally new path forward.
So let's start with the image that probably comes to mind for a lot of us. The heroic, conscientious objector. A person like Seth Laughlin, right? The story is almost mythical. His spiritual conviction was so powerful that it could literally stop bullets. No violence, just a powerful witness. This is really the bedrock of the whole tradition, a deep, profound no to killing.
And that ideal of saying no to war? It has an incredibly powerful history, no doubt. But as we're about to see, there's another side to the story. It carries a shadowed legacy, one that really forces us to ask some pretty uncomfortable questions. Now, over the decades, that courageous no just got bigger and bigger. You can see it here. It started in the Civil War as a very personal refusal of the act of killing. Fast forward to the World Wars, and it had grown to rejecting the entire institution of the military. And then, by Vietnam, it was a no to the whole state apparatus of war. Each generation's refusal went deeper and wider.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty heroic, but, and this is the big but, was this powerful peace testimony really for everyone? Because that whole progression, as important as it was, kind of masked an unsettling truth that was hiding in plain sight.
Well, indigenous Quaker writer Tom Kunash puts it this way. There were basically two different peace testimonies running at the same time. On one hand, you had the celebrated one, Quakers courageously objecting to what were essentially wars between white European empires. But on the other hand, there was this unspoken testimony that demanded peace, which really meant submission from the indigenous peoples whose land was being stolen.
And that moral blind spot, it wasn't just a simple mistake or an oversight. It actively helped create a devastating system of harm, often, and this is the tricky part, delivered with the best of intentions.
This brings us to a really critical concept called benevolent harm. It sounds like a contradiction, right? But it's what happens when well-meaning folks create humane alternatives to violence, things like schools or new prison systems, but they do it in partnership with the state. And in doing so, they end up serving the state's own violent goals of control and assimilation.
And there is no more chilling example of this than the Indian boarding school system. I mean, just listen to that quote. It was actually framed as a peaceful alternative to just killing indigenous people outright, but its real purpose was cultural genocide, systematically trying to destroy languages, spirituality, families, all under the banner of saving people. It's horrifying. So here's the key idea. You can't look at these as separate issues. Critics argue they're all part of one big, interlocking system of violence, which they call CCV. Think of it like a three-legged stool. Christian ideology gave the moral permission slip. Colonialism did the actual land theft. And capitalism built the engine that profits from it all. You can't pull them apart.
Okay, so if the problem is this big, fused system of harm, then the answer has to be a fused theology of repair. And that is exactly what's starting to emerge right now.
The term for this process is syncretic theology. And it's not about just throwing out one tradition. It's about intentionally blending different spiritual ways of seeing the world. In this case, it's about incorporating the profound wisdom of colonized traditions to help correct the historical blind spots of a Western faith.
And this is where it gets really beautiful. This new theology fuses the core Quaker idea of the inner light, that there's that of God in every person, with the indigenous concept of the harmony way. And what this does is it shifts the whole goal. It's no longer just about peace as in no more war. It's about harmony, a state of balance and right relationship with all of creation. It's so much bigger.
So that's the big idea. Now let's see how it actually builds a tangible blueprint for action. Let's look at the three pillars of repair. So remember that fused system of harm we talked about, CCV? Well, the thinking is you need a symmetrical antidote to fight it. You need a response that's just as integrated, one that takes spiritual belief and turns it into real material action.
Okay, this chart is it's brilliant. It's basically the Rosetta Stone for this whole idea. It takes modern decolonial actions and shows how they're actually expressions of old, cherished Quaker values. So land back, that's not just a political slogan, it's the living testimony of integrity, making things right. Mutual aid is the testimony of equality in action. And abolition? Well, that's just the peace testimony, expanded to include the violence of police and prisons. It just clicks.
So, as you can probably imagine, when you propose something this radical, this big, it creates some tension. It's creating a modern crisis of conscience, forcing people to choose between two very different paths.
And what's wild is that we've seen this exact movie before. This tension is a mirror image of the 1843 abolitionist schism. Back then, the fight wasn't over if slavery was wrong. Everyone agreed it was. The fight was about how fast to end it. The radicals demanded it end now, while the institution wanted a slow, gradual approach to keep everyone together. Sound familiar? So really, it all boils down to this one fundamental conflict. What's more important? The urgent prophetic call for justice, even if it might break things, or preserving the unity of the institution, even if it means moving slowly. But this isn't just about pointing out problems. There is a path forward being proposed. A clear three-phase roadmap, really. It's designed to guide a whole community, starting with deep study and reflection, moving to developing these new ideas, and finally committing to the real, tangible work of repair.
So why does all this matter? Well, this is the big shift. The new conscientious objector isn't just about saying no anymore. It's about a powerful, active yes. A yes to building a new world. It's a move away from focusing on just an individual's own moral purity and toward the messy, hard work of liberation for everyone. It demands solidarity with people, not just charity for them.
And all of this leaves us with one last big, provocative question. For centuries, the peace testimony has been this incredible, powerful force. But is that old definition of peace, is it really enough for the crises we're facing today? Or is something bigger, something more urgent and way more transformative being asked of us right now?